welcome back. Today I'm going to be reviewing Adrienne Young's The Girl the Sea Gave Back. So it's a very Viking-inspired novel, which she has another one, The Sky and the Deep, which I have not read. Apparently it's in the same world, so that one's also Viking-inspired. I've never read anything that's Viking-esque. The closest I can even think is Game of Thrones, which I know it's not necessarily Vikings, like they don't live on ships, but I've never seen the show, never read the books. All I can think of is they're very violent and they wear furs, which I associate with Vikings, except for the ship. This book is one of those where I just have to ask, have you ever been super excited about a book only to be disappointed? I was this close to actually buying the audiobook, which says a ton because audiobooks are expensive, but I read the premise and I was like, wow, I want to read that. I'm really glad that I didn't. I'm really glad that I have those online libraries because I was able to find it on one of them and not waste my money. I guess waste my money is a bit of an exaggeration because I did like it in the end, but no book. Golly, what was the chapter? Chapter 15? I mean, so that's halfway through the book, maybe? I don't remember exactly how many chapters there were, but it was at least halfway through the book before I was engaged. And that's a problem. So it would have been a waste of money only because that's far too much of a book for me not to enjoy, for me to have spent money on it. About the book, it focuses on a young Kira girl named Tova, who in the very beginning is shown being sacrificed, I guess, or led to believe she's being sacrificed by her own people, and then she washes up on the shores of another clan, another tribe called the Svel. Jorund, who, I don't exactly know what his title is within this clan, but he's something special. He's not a healer. He's not like Tova. He does not see the future or read the future, but he has some kind of special place. Anyways, so he recognizes by her markings that she is a truth tongue. He knows, one, that because she's a Kira, he should not bring her in, and two, that she's a truth tongue, that he should not bring her in, but he thinks that their god brought her to them. So he picks her up and he raises her and he, I guess, teaches her how to use her ability to read rune stones. I didn't quite figure out how much. She was about 6 when he finds her, so I don't know how much she's remembering from before and how much she gathers because of his teachings. Anyways, brings her into the fold. We fast forward to present day, where she's being brought in basically to the council because they want her to read the rune stones. They want to know their future because the chieftain is at odds with his brother, because his brother has attacked another tribe, and the chieftain just doesn't think that was the best idea. So anyways, she reads the rune stones, and they come up saying, complete annihilation, of course, which, this was a problem I had with the book, which I guess it is true to life, that they blame her. She is not in charge of their future. All she's doing is reading what the future holds, yet she is blamed. But I guess in many aspects of life, you want to shoot the messenger. You want to say, well, if you never read the future, we never would have known this was going to happen. Well, you asked her to read the future. She reads this future. And the chieftain says, let's go make reparation with this tribe that we've attacked. They get there, and his brother betrays him, and he starts a battle. The chieftain ends up dying at the hands of... So they're battling the Nadir. The brother has killed the current Nadir chief, so then I guess the chieftain in training then kills the Svel chief. But he escapes, and who gets blamed for all of this again? Tova! Because it was her fault that he betrayed his brother, Vigdis. That Vigdis betrayed his brother. He obviously threatens her with death, and she's like, I'll find him for you. So she tracks him down to another village, and more stuff ensues, but we're doing the love at first sight thing here again, although it's not as bad. It's more of an instant attraction of sorts, like an instant bond. So she, as they pursue Halvard, she's trying to decide if this is the right thing to do. Which in my head, I'm like, there is no love lost between you and the Svel. So why is there even a question? Like, why don't you just run? Well, she can't run because she's under constant guard. I guess ever since she came, she's been under constant guard. Then it's about, should she help the Svel, or should she then go onto Halvard's side and help them defeat the Svel? The book, two narrators, Halvard and Tova, they switch every other chapter. And I liked Halvard kind of from the get-go. I did not like Tova. Not that she was an unlikable character, I just didn't connect with her. I did not understand her mindset at all. As I said, she is part of a group that hates her. In her past, she had, again, been called to foretell the future of the chieftain's daughter, and then the daughter dies, and of course it's all Tova's fault, right? The chieftain, who'd kind of been ambivalent towards her up until then, now hates her because she killed his daughter. Even Jorund, who I initially assumed was kind of her father figure, he's pretty self-serving. He doesn't take her in out of love. He doesn't necessarily raise her out of love. He raises her because of what she can do for him. He can kind of raise his status. Even though everybody hates her and they hate what she can do, I don't understand any of this. So I do not understand why she would then volunteer to hunt down Halvard, or not hunt him down, but find him so that Vigdis and this Svel can then kill him. It wasn't until they finally tracked him down to this other Nadir village, and this again is confusing for me, that she decides, you know what, this is not the right thing to do. And so what happens is, at this village, and maybe it's because I was listening to it, so something was lost in translation, but it sounded like, you know, he's at the city gate, and they're watching him from some elevated point, and then she approaches him, yet nobody can see it. I get it, there's like a lot of smoke because they burned the village, and I guess maybe because it was night/morning, and I think they were close to water, so maybe there was mist. Visibility was obscured. She approaches him, and they kind of have this little conversation, and she lets him go. And then she cuts off the head of somebody else, and since nobody's actually seen Halvard, they just accept that it's his head. I really don't understand how she got away with this. But it was at that point where I was like, okay, girl's taking control, and I'm cool with this. Like, she's making a decision for herself, and I felt that's what she needed to do. I'm fine with a character not having a sense of self in the beginning of a novel, because that's sort of what a character arc is for, you know? But it took really, really long for her to get to any point. I mean, she had a little bit of a question. I mean, of course, she had moral issues with the way that the Svel handles things, but there was really nothing in her that was like, I need to get away. You know, I need to disagree, I need to put my foot down, I need to say something, until halfway through the book. I think what else bothered me about this writing was that Young took us back in time. So she would go through Tova's perspective, and then when she would go to Halvard's perspective, she would take us back to the beginning of the scene so we could see it all in his perspective. And that, not necessarily when I first started writing, but, you know, the more I learned about writing and the more I heard about you don't do this, I was kind of not indignant, but I was like, but what if that's just part of the story? Obviously, I think it's an important way of storytelling, so who are you to tell me it's not okay? But then you read it, and you really do see how it stops the forward momentum of a story, because I've invested all of this chapter, however long it takes you to read or listen to a chapter, and then you don't get to keep going. You have to stop and go back just to see the same thing from someone else's perspective. Granted, somebody else's perspective. So it's not exactly the same, but I'm not moving forward in the story. I'm stuck. Outside of how long it took Tova to become a person, I was not into this, let's go back every single chapter. Because I don't even know how many days this took. It felt like forever and no time at all. Because if we keep reliving, 24 hours in a day, and if we relive half of those hours, it's a 12-hour day that takes an entire book to really say nothing at all. Let's move on to the point where Tova makes her decision and the novel really starts picking up. So she's brought her head to Vigdis, or the head, to Vigdis, and he again says, read the runestones. But she has already determined she doesn't want to do that anymore. She just doesn't think it's right. She doesn't think that the gods will approve of this and that she's already part of the problem. Of course, Vigdis says, well, you don't do it, I'm going to cut off your hand, because she has to, throw the runestones with her hand. He's like, and then you're still going to read the runestones because you have another hand left. She consents, but instead of asking for their future, she asks for Halvard's future. And then in that, she realizes Halvard and the Nadir are going to succeed, whereas the Svel will not. But she doesn't ask this question out loud. So Jorund, who she has taught how to read the runestones, there's something about throwing them and the way they land, and I guess they can sort of form a picture or have a connectivity that only makes sense to her. So he can't really read them, but he can kind of recognize some of them, and he recognizes good signs. And so she just goes with it. It's like, yes, good things are going to happen for you. You made the right decision, because in order to prevent your destruction, you did have to destroy a completely other clan. Now the Svel think, we're good. And that night, she decides to then read her own future, I guess, or her future regards to Halvard. Whatever the case, she realizes they're linked, and she's like, yeah, I need to get out of here. So she escapes, but not before her guard catches her. I need a little bit of water for my Georgia Southern cup. Whoa. Anyways, so her guard, Guntar, he catches her, obviously, because he's her guard. While nobody really likes her, and he's not necessarily been warm and fuzzy towards her, he did come alongside her and teach her how to, I guess, defend herself, how to use weapons, how to kind of survive. She gets him to realize that what the Svel are doing is not right, and she needs to get out of there. She advises him to do so, but as a warrior, he's like, not gonna happen. I'm not deserting my clan. So he lets her go, and she meets up with Halvard, and she convinces him to let her join forces with them. But he does not want her to read runestones for him, and, she's actually very surprised by the Nadir people, because they're not afraid of her. The Svel come, battle happens, the Nadir win, obviously, because that was what was foretold. Guntar kills Vigdis, but then I think Vigdis kills him back. So that is kind of sad. There are not a lot of characters in this book that you really connect with, because most of the characters that you're interacting with are Svel, and are just pretty ruthless and not likable characters. So even though you don't really get a whole lot of Guntar, you do see that his heart was in the right place. He killed Vigdis. No. Yes, he did kill Vigdis. Sorry about that. For a moment, I was like, Anyways, yeah, so he kills Vigdis, trying to protect Tova, because she, the Nadir are losing. They're vastly outnumbered. But she finds a way to obliterate the Svel army, but she can't do it without crossing enemy lines. Vigdis catches her, blah, blah, blah. Guntar, Vigdis, they're both dead, and it ends. But then, I guess this could be kind of a twist. It's not really more of a twist, maybe it's more of a reveal. The Kira people show up, and it turns out that Tova was not sacrificed. she'd sort of been misled by Jorund into thinking the boat he found her on was like a sacrificial boat, but it was actually a funeral boat because she had died. I think again, some of my confusion comes because it was an audiobook, so I missed certain things because sometimes you just zone out. It's really hard to reread things on an audiobook because rewinding is just not as precise as turning a page back or going back a paragraph. So it turns out that she had died in an accident at sea. I think she drowned. I don't know. Well, obviously, if she says at sea, she drowned. But I don't know if, it's not like she was on a boat. I think, maybe she was swimming. Not important. She had died, but their God, I think, had promised them that she would come back to them. So they had sent her off on this funeral boat, which somehow revived her. And that's when Jorund found her. She meets her parents and is like, what, we're all back together, happy ending. But it's not the ending, because there's still Halvard to consider. And the whole thing with Tova and Halvard is they kind of had a romance without having a romance. In that first battle, he sees her across the way. And of course he's astonished because Kira, it's like they're from the far north. And they never leave the far north. So he's like, why would they have a Kira with them? But outside of that, he, I guess, feels a zing, a zap, a whatever, an invisible tether. I think she kind of got the same sensation. Don't really remember because at that point, I just didn't care. But they continue to feel this connection because she is seeking him and she's using mystical means. And so she kind of keeps appearing where he can see her. So he's just really intrigued, and I guess, the more that she pursues him, the more intrigued she is by him, and of course by the morality of what they're doing. They really don't have a lot of face time. I mean, even after she joins them, like, the Svel show up a couple hours or a day later, and the battle begins. I liked the love story angle because all girls want that. Like, it attracts them, but it was not the major focus. So I liked that balance of a romance, but it's not really a romance. That's not what the book was about. But it did give you something to root for. She has a decision to make. Go home with her people or stay with Halvard. Well, they don't even know each other. I mean, honestly, they don't even know each other. So it's not like she can say, well, he's my love, so of course I'm staying, because she doesn't know if he wants her to stay. So she reads the runes again, and they say, yes, stay, and so she stays. The end! It's just this, for me, it's just so polarizing, because the beginning was really lackluster. Premise is great. Beginning, really slow. While I said that I liked Halvard closer to the beginning than I liked Tova, it really wasn't even until after that first skirmish. And that's like 5-6 chapters in. Because there's a lot of backstory. And I know that her other book, The Sky and the Deep, it's not necessarily, you don't have to read that one to understand this one, but I think there is a good bit of background you get of the Nadir people. And so there's a lot of backstory about these people, and all the names, like Nadir, Svel, Kira, they're all, the tribe names are funky, the people's names are funky. There are, like, I guess in the past, in Sky and the Deep, there had been another invasion in which a very powerful tribe had come and taken over, and, tribes had united. So there's all these really insignificant tribes, but they all have funky names, so there's a lot that's difficult to keep up with. Even Tova and Halvard, I couldn't remember their names until that 15 chapter mark. Like, it was just really, there's nothing that stood out to help me say, okay, this, even when a new chapter started, and it would say, chapter 12, Tova. Like, I still couldn't, I was like, who's Tova? There are a lot of little things that prevented me from connecting. When she joined the Nadir, then I was invested, because I was like, alright, so she's made a choice, and I want to know how that's going to turn out. I know that the Nadir are supposed to win, but at what cost? What's going to happen to Guntar? It's been revealed that he has no family anymore. So now it's like, well, you want him to survive because Tova wants him to survive because he has helped her. But then it's like, well, what about Vigdis? My righteous anger is saying, like, his own people need to massacre him because he lied to them. He betrays his brother because he thinks that what he thinks is the right way to go. And then from Tova's perspective, we are told that nobody who was there in the clearing is gonna tell the truth. Like, nobody is gonna throw him under the bus and say, well, our chieftain died because of him. So, like, all of these people, including Tova, are supporting a man who should not be supported. Which, I love that aspect. I love a villain that you love to hate. Like, that's a good villain. That's a good antagonist, where you have strong emotions. So it's not that I hated him, but I was just like, did not understand anybody's motivations. It was a well-done novel, and I've heard really great things about The Sky in the Deep. So I will read that. That's on my TBR. I would recommend this based off the strength of the ending and the creativity. But again, I would say go into it with a grain of salt, because I've read a number of reviews where people who have read The Sky in the Deep and said they read The Girl the Sea Gave Back because they loved The Sky in the Deep, but they were unimpressed by The Girl the Sea Gave Back because basically all of my reasons. Check it out if you feel like it. If you don't, I'm gonna say you're not really missing out on much. Not what I was hoping for. And that's just, an arrow to the heart. But it happens, and I can't wait to see what happens in The Sky in the Deep. So, till next time.